How's it going, everyone, and welcome back to this lesson where we are going to quickly talk about the preferences. So the preferences are an important part and component of After Effects. So let's check it out. If you go under Edit and go to Preferences General, it will open up a new dialog box, and in that dialog box you're going to have, like in any software, a bunch of preferences. Now some of them are not super important, so you can leave them as is, but some of them are a bit more important. Like for example, the previews. You want to set your previews to be on adaptive resolution, which means that depending on your setting and the graphic card that you have and the processor that you have, this will help you to downgrade the resolution when you're doing some previews, so that you can have real-time preview faster, if you will. That's the idea. So I'd like to keep mine on 1/8, which is pretty cool to get me fast previews. Under the display, you have a bunch of options pertaining to motion paths and how the thumbnails are displayed in the project panel and so on. So if you like, you can click on some of those here. Regarding the import, you will have the option of saying, okay, I want my basic compositions to be a certain length, or the length of the composition in terms of if you're drag and dropping a picture and creating a composition out of a picture, it will make it the length of that composition. Or if you already have a composition that's created and import a picture, it will be directly to the length of that composition. Now, another thing here that's important is the sequence footage. So depending on where you're located, if you're in the States or Europe and so on, you will have different types of frame rates here, okay? So the pretty much standard, let's call it the golden standard in cinema, is to be around 24 frames per second. So I like to set up my projects when I'm working on a basis of 24 frames per second, except if I'm working on something specific that requires a higher frame rate, or a specific country that's using a different frame rate. But it is an important setting to have, and as a default, I like to keep it at 24. I like to have a report on my missing frames, because if there's some missed frames, I like to know about it. If I don't see them, I don't know they're missing. Okay, so that's regarding the import. The output, well, you could keep it as is. The grids here are linked to seeing the grids in your composition, and if you want to change the colors, feel free to do so. Labeling here is pretty important, because when you start to have a lot of files, you would need to know how to label things so that you're nicely organized. So I will have a separate lesson on this, but this is a pretty much important thing. By default, it will look like this, but in another lesson, I will show you my workflow in terms of the coloring. Media and disk cache. This one is pretty important, because here you have the option of enabling disk cache, and you should put it on a different hard drive than the one that you're using. Let me explain. Because when you're enabling disk cache, what is happening is that After Effects in the background is caching some files so it can play back faster things that you're trying to see in your composition. Now, the idea here is that if it's on the same drive, your drive is working with Windows, everything, After Effects running, but if it's on the same drive, it will be slower. If it's on a different drive, let's say you have attached on your computer another drive, and you choose here the folder to be on that different drive, then it will be faster, because it will source the files there while being free to calculate whatever needs to be calculated from the main hard drive. All right, so without going too much further into details here, just remember that it should be on another hard drive for it to be faster. Video preview. Now you have the ability to enable Mercury Transmit, and what Mercury Transmit is that you can select another monitor if you have multiple monitors, which like I have now. I have 3 monitors attached here, so you can select that when you're previewing, one of the monitors becomes the one that's displaying whatever you're trying to preview. All right, or you can keep it off to have the preview here in your main monitor. The appearance, well, you can change the brightness overall of your layout if you like to have a darker or brighter controls, focus indicators, and so on. I like to keep that on default. I like the way that it looks by default, so I wouldn't fiddle too much with this. Regarding the new project, you can select to load the template if you like. You can create a template and then say new project loads with the template. This is not a crucial thing because most of the projects you'll be working on might be different, except that if you're dealing with something that's, specific and you will be doing it over and over, you don't really want to create these folders and the workflow that you have. You would like to reuse it every time you're creating a new composition. So this is where you can select this. The autosave, pretty important. I like to keep mine on every 5 minutes, because it's important. We forget, we tend to, be lost in the creation or whatever we're trying to do. And because we're creatives, we forget about it. And the software crashes. Trust me, it crashes more often than not. And then you haven't saved what you've done. And then you have to redo everything. So in that moment of creativity, who knows if you will be able to redo what you did exactly as you did it. But before saving, of course. But this is why you have this autosave on. So please make sure to enable it. I have it every 5 minutes because, 5 minutes is just enough to remember what I did, and I can redo it if I forgot to save. So that's the idea. Keep it on, it will save you. Memory and preferences, performance. So this is here set up to, I have on my computer now 96 RAM, which is enough on this computer to do some projects, and I'd like to keep the reserved RAM for other applications to around, let's say 5, or to around, let's say 12. And that way, this is how this is set up. Make sure to enable multi-frame rendering, because you want to have this on and keep around 10% of it for the other applications that are running in the background. Audio hardware, here you can set up which audio hardware you're using and where you want to output the audio as well. Type is the font menu. This you can leave as it is. And scripting and expressions, I like to put on allow scripts to write files and access network, because when I'll be installing some scripts later down the line, and trust me, you will too, you will need to allow this. And 3D, I leave this by default, and some of the notifications, if there are some rendering notification, this is not so important, and to click OK. So this is to give you a quick run through about the preferences, the way they like to set them, and things that you should set up in this way so that you make sure that your After Effects is running as smooth as it possibly can. All right, this is it for this lesson. I'll see you in the next one.